Hey, what's up guys? On today's 90s Nostalgia Trip, we're going to be taking a look at some of the rare and long-forgotten knockoffs or rip-offs of the classic children's horror series, Goosebumps. Now, for those of you who somehow don't know, Goosebumps originally ran from 1992 to 1997, with 62 titles in the original series before delving into various spin-off series, though all of those Goosebumps spin-offs were also helmed by original series creator R.L. Stine, who still continues to produce various forms of Goosebumps books to this very day. Now, as is the case with most successful book series, many other series began popping up throughout the 90s that tried to capitalize on the success of Goosebumps, though most would turn out to be short-lived. Now, as far as what qualifies as a spin-off or a knockoff in this case, to me anyway, are series that share essentially the same style and format of Goosebumps. So while kids' anthology horror series such as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark or Tales for the Midnight Hour, while they share similarities to Goosebumps, we're going to stick with series that are straightforward, standalone novels rather than collections of short stories. The first series we're going to take a look at today is actually probably my favorite of the Goosebumps clones, and that is Shivers. Now, Shivers is a book series that features 36 books written by author M.D. Spencer, and like Goosebumps features standalone short novels telling tales of kids in peril and forced to deal with some sort of supernatural monster. The books are filled with various twists and turns intended to keep younger readers on the edges of their seats for anywhere from about 120 to 125 pages. Now, one thing I've always loved about this series is the artwork for these books. I mean, look how awesome some of these images are. It's honestly very easy to see why a kid would be intrigued by the covers of these books, as when you're a kid looking for a book to check out at your local library or your school library, the first thing that has to catch your eye is a creepy or badass cover. Now, obviously, as the saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover, but in this case, at least for the Shivers stories that I've read, this is a series worth checking out if you're a Goosebumps fan. Actually, one of the first books I ever read cover to cover was the Shivers book, Lost in Dreamland, about two kids who end up lost in a creepy amusement park and slowly start to uncover the dark secrets that the park may be hiding within its walls. Now, of course, if you're a Goosebumps fan, that will probably sound very, very familiar, but honestly, the story itself is actually different from One Day in Horrorland, and I found myself, at least at the time that I read it, really getting caught up in the story and found it genuinely hard to put down. Even the twist at the end I thought was pretty interesting and creative. So if you're interested in a pretty solid Goosebumps clone to kind of put you back in that frame of mind from when you were a kid, diving into a creepy kids horror book for the very first time, the Shivers books were actually republished as ebooks as recently as 2011, so you shouldn't have too difficult a time tracking at least some of these books down. The next series on our list is Bone Chillers, and was created by author Betsy Hines, though some of the books in this series were written by other authors. The series ran from 1994 to 1998 and consisted of 23 books that told the story of freshman students dealing with supernatural forces at the haunted Edgar Allan Poe High School. The series also spawned a short-lived TV adaptation on ABC that ran from September 7th, 1996 to December 7th, 1996, and produced 13 episodes in its one and only season. While the book series told the stories of different characters for each book, the stories that were adapted for the TV show were changed to feature the same recurring characters in order to use the same cast throughout the series. Now, while many people often consider the Goosebumps TV series to be cheesy and campy in its own right, and it definitely has many of those moments, the Bone Chillers television series was pretty much full-fledged cheese the majority of the time. I think also when you really stop and look at some of the books in this series, it's pretty easy to see just how much of a ripoff of Goosebumps this particular series was aiming to be. even though the haunted high school concept was sort of an attempt at putting a twist on things. Because of that, I think it's also pretty easy to understand why Bone Chillers only lasted 23 books, though I do find it kind of ironic that such a blatant copycat of Goosebumps ended up managing to secure its own TV adaptation, even though that didn't last very long either. So I think if we're being fair, if you want a Goosebumps knockoff that sort of goes the extra mile on the cheese factor, Bone Chillers might be worth checking out. The third and final series we'll be diving into today is Graveyard School. Graveyard School was created by author Nola Thacker, who wrote under the pseudonym Tom B. Stone. Get it? Tom B. Stone, Tombstone, Tom B. Stone, you get it? The series ran from 1994 to 1998 and consisted of 28 books that generally took place in the fictional city of Grove Hill, with each story featuring a plethora of different recurring characters, usually preteen boys and girls, dealing with various supernatural happenings, with the adult characters almost never believing the kids that anything strange is going on. Oftentimes, the main characters of one book would be referenced as simple background or side characters in others. One of the main settings of the books is Grove Hill Elementary School, which is given its nickname of the Graveyard School due to the literal graveyard that, for some reason, resides right next to the school itself. Now, I have to say one thing I really like about the Graveyard School concept is that pretty much all of these books take place within one town, where all sorts of creepy and supernatural things take place, and in various parts of the neighborhoods. It's a cool idea and a good way to have some sort of a line of continuity throughout the series, as minimal as it may be. This is also another series that features some pretty cool cover art, with one book cover in particular for the book Let's Scare the Teacher to Death being a source of nightmare fuel for me as a little kid, as for whatever reason, something about those striped socks and those curled black shoes that almost resemble something a witch would wear really got my imagination going. Exaggerated stuff like this just always had a tendency to creep me out as a little kid for some reason, and I'll just leave it at that. And I should also mention, the Tragic School Bus is a pretty hilarious name for a book intended for young, school-aged kids. All in all, these are just a few of the many different kinds of book series that tried and usually failed at copying the highly successful format that R.L. Stine had pretty much patented by the late 90s. He churned out Goosebumps books faster than most kids could keep up with, and there's just, frankly, no one better at young adult horror. So what was your favorite book series that I listed today? Are there any Goosebumps ripoffs that I missed that you grew up with? Leave them down in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe for much more 90s nostalgia to come. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.